Well, hello there. The bad weather that we've been having, not that you would think it was bad weather from the blue skies above me, but I can assure you this sunshine has only just appeared this afternoon. And as I say, on camera, although it looks decent, the wind is absolutely perishing cold, and not the best of weather for standing around delivering narratives. So I've decided reluctantly to take my foot off the gas and scale back my filming plan somewhat, because I'm just stressing myself out here, literally getting up every morning trying to see what the weather's going to be, and you know, it's just not happening. If there's no wind, there's showers. If it's not showers, then it's dull and overcast. And the tasks that I've set myself with the Hadrian's Wall, the Durham series, the Rivers project, it's just, as I say, it's stressing me out because I'm just not getting any of it done. I think the Durham series will get finished this year, and there should be 1 or 2 decent days to get the Hadrian's Wall film finished okay. But as I say, it's probably the Rivers project which is going to have to be postponed. Maybe I'll get a start on it at the end of the year, but like I said, it's I'm just going to have to postpone it for now and concentrate on the stuff that I can do. Someone wrote to me the other day and gave me an idea for something new. And it seemed to work rather well, especially after my birthday trip to York, my walk around the city. So I've decided that maybe a more manageable series to do will be these sort of walk-arounds. The disadvantage is, of course, they're not as well researched. Obviously, when I'm walking around, all I'm able to give you is what I can remember and what's off the top of my head. So that's, I guess, is a disadvantage. They're not going to be as thorough or as well produced. But the advantage of doing these is that I can get to many, many more places. As you know, I'm sort of restricted into the northeast region, and that's simply because of cost and travel time. As I say, I'm going to cross over the road again, risking my life here. And I thought, what better place to start this than Newbiggin by the sea, which of course I lived here for the first 60 years of my life. So it's a place I'm very familiar with and seemed like the right place to start this little series. So getting back to what I was just saying there, because this camera is so light and the bag it comes in contains everything. The camera, the microphones, the spare microphones, the batteries. It's a very, very light carryable bag, and it means I can hop on a train and go somewhere for the day, and quite far reaching. I could even get to London and back in a day. It's only 3 hours from Newcastle, and so it means that I can do little potted histories, if you like, of places that I would never be able to reach with the big camera and all the palaver that entails. So as I say, this first of these walk, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to call it yet. Probably something like Walkabout with John or something like that. So I'll have a think about that. But so as I say, I'm in Newbiggin today. The sun has come out this afternoon. So you see, I guess I could have even put the drone up today, but the point was, this morning it was threatening heavy showers, and it was quite cold, the wind was blowing, and it's only this afternoon that this has got out. Now, Newbiggin's only 20 minutes away from where I live, so it's very easy to bundle everything in the car and reach here and do a little bit of filming. But if I was, the next 2 areas that I need to visit with the drone are Seaham, which is a good hour from my place, and then the next section of Hadrian's Wall is a very, very difficult section to film because of its height above sea level and its inaccessibility. It's very, very difficult to get to. It's all right if you've got a backpack and you're a hiker and you're doing the Hadrian's Wall walk. But for the likes of me that has a back problem and me respiratory problems, there's no way I could walk that section of the wall to film. And again, that section of the wall is a good hour away from home. So I've got to be sure that driving all that way, that when I get there, the weather's going to be decent enough to be able to do all that I do. And I usually have a long list of things to film. You can't go all that way just to do 10 minutes worth of flying. It's, you know, to make it, like I've said before, I'm only on an old age pension, so if I'm driving 40, 50 or even 100 miles, I've got to make sure that that day is worth the effort and the cost. So those are the restrictions, and like I say, this morning wasn't too good, so there was no way I was planning on going anywhere. But these little walkabouts, they could be done very easily, and they don't have to be sunny days. I mean, it's nice to be walking in the sun, but another advantage from me is, like I said, on camera, look at that, blue sky, but it's cold. And as you know, I normally present things in my shirt, and it's just too cold for that. So at least with these walkabouts, I can wear my hat and me winter jacket, and I'm warm and cozy, and it doesn't have to be a blue sky day, as long as it's not raining. And as you saw in York, it was actually drizzling that whole time, and it doesn't affect this camera because it's waterproof. So even when the weather's not good, it means I can still get out and produce something. And as I said before, in the last bulletin, for YouTube to keep you in the loop, you need to be producing stuff. And this is the pressure I was talking about just earlier there. The bigger productions, I mean, this morning, for example, I was doing some editing for the Mary Ann Cotton film, which is coming shortly. But it takes hours and hours, not just to do the research and the filming, but then for each part that I'm speaking about, more or less for each sentence, I've then got to go online and search for an appropriate image. And then, of course, you come across copyright problems and so on and so forth. So just editing 1 minute of those films takes hours and hours. So as you know, most of my films are 45 minutes to an hour long. So you can get some idea of the length of time it takes me to compile all that and put it together. So my point is, there just isn't enough hours in the day to be able to be knocking those big films out every week or every 2 weeks. And as you know, again, over the last 3 years, I've pretty much set myself one a month. But YouTube sort of want more than that. In other words, to keep you at the top of the league table, as it were, you need to be putting something out, I would say, once a week. That keeps your viewers engaged. It keeps your number of likes and your number of viewed hours up there. And that then, in YouTube terms, makes you popular, and therefore they're going to push you and introduce your stuff to new people, which is what spreads the channel. And of course, at the end of every film, I ask you guys to share the links and spread the word. Anybody, friends or family, you know, you can tell them about me films, and hopefully they'll become new subscribers. But normally that's how it happens via YouTube. Your popularity, and if you're popular at the top of the table, they'll then push your films to other people. So, like I said, these little walkabouts just seem to me to fit the bill. And a number of comments I've had in the last, well, couple of weeks have seemed to suggest that. I mean, I got quite a few comments about the not being on the second episode of Hadrian's Wall. And as I say, that was intentional, because it was really just meant to be a drone series as a bonus to the original Hadrian's Wall film. But the responses I got from people was that you like to see me on the films and so on and so forth. So this sort of idea that I'm discussing with you seems to fit the bill, and means that I can be posting stuff regularly. And I'm not abandoning the big films, they will get done. Like I said, I'm hoping that I can at least begin the Rivers project by the end of the year. Who knows? But looking at the weather, we're now at the end of April. Yeah, okay, there's a blue sky today. There it is. But it's certainly too cold to be standing doing a narrative in just me Marks and Spencer's shirt like I normally do. Far too cold for that. And so what's left? May, June, July up here in the northeast is usually wet. August, I'm away on holiday. Me and the missus are going to Spain for 2 weeks. So there won't be much happening in August. And then you're into the autumn again. And the year's gone. You know, this time last year, I was 3/4 way through the Northumberland project, and we were getting sunny days every other day. I mean, it was you know, really pleasant and easy to do. And this year has just been a disaster for everything, for the farmers, for, you know, everything. So, as I say, that's where we're at the moment, and that's my new idea. Now, if you've got any ideas about what to call the series, please give me some ideas. Or obviously by the time you're watching this, I'll have decided on a title myself, so just let me know whether you think it's suitable or not. Changing the title is easy. I don't have to remove the film from YouTube to do that. So please leave a comment with your ideas. Secondly, you can give me some ideas on where you would like me to visit. One lady's already suggested I do the next one along the North Shields Fish Quay, so I shall endeavour to do that. That's an easy one because it's a metro ride from home. I welcome comments, as you know, in the comments section, because especially when I'm going to be doing these Walkabout films, it's not possible to remember everything, and I can't carry sheets of paper around with me. That would just be totally useless and defeating the object. So there's going to be things I miss. But that's not the point. It's not meant to be a comprehensive history of the place. It's just literally a walkabout, as if you were walking with me and talking about the place and what I can remember about the place. So it's not going to be as comprehensive as I said before. So you can add your own comments as you normally do, and I welcome that, as you know. However, what isn't helpful is people writing to me, as one person did, and telling me that I shouldn't have been standing on Hadrian's Wall. Well, those comments are not helpful, and if any are made, they'll be simply removed, because that's not adding to the filming, and I don't need people to tell me about what I should and shouldn't be doing. If Anna and I, the co-presenter of that series, were standing on the wall, then it was for a specific purpose. It was in relation to whatever it was we were talking about, either giving a sense of scale or, what, as I said, whatever the comment was. So don't waste your time making those sort of comments, because I'll just remove them. What I do want are people adding. Now, there was a chap, can't remember his name, on the North Yorkshire series that added 2 very, very helpful comments with regard to the history of the North Yorkshire coast. Things that elaborated on what I'd said, you know, so that's helpful, and those sort of comments are welcome. Also, occasionally I get things wrong and I mispronounce something, or maybe I've got a name that is you know better, and I always say, if you do know something, if I'm not sure, I'll say that, and I'll invite you to write in and put me right. So that's all fine. That's the normal workings of the channel. But just making a dumb comment, I'm afraid that's not helpful, and it will be removed. I just don't want that. So let's start this walkabout with John proper then. Now that I've given you the news, and here we are on Newbiggin Beach. Now, some of you might remember I did an autobiography. It's in the biographies playlist, where I told you about how my family came to settle in Newbiggin. So head over to the biographies section to see that. It's quite an interesting story. This is where I grew up and spent the first 60 years of my life, until I met my good lady and moved into Newcastle. And this beach behind me here used to be as flat as a pancake, and we used to play football on that till it got dark, and there was enough flat sand to be able to mark out a full football pitch. And when I was even younger, the rocks in the far background there, we used to go rock pooling. But it's all changed now. In fact, even since I was last here, they're building something new. Looks like some sort of cafe, because I can see tables outside. I'll just spin the camera around and let you see. So I'm sure that looks interesting, whatever it is. There's always a bit of a dead area of the promenade, that being at the end. The council never knew what to do with it, but it looks as though they've come across with a good idea. Of course, since the pandemic, Newbiggin has been discovered. I think it appeared in some media somewhere that it was the cheapest place to live next to the sea. So people were Googling cheap places to buy houses on the coast, and Newbiggin came up as, and it's true, for years, you know, the house prices here were rock bottom, because after the mines closed, there was nothing here. People used to commute out to Newcastle and Cramlington and Morpeth for work, but there was no jobs in Newbiggin at all, apart from 1 or 2 shops. However, since the pandemic, there's loads of new building gone up. Again, if I just stop and show you this, those seafront houses there were once my junior school, and they are all now luxury apartments costing about £500,000 each, I think. So as I say, it's changed a lot, Newbiggin, since I was growing up here. This beach that I'm walking on, which is extremely difficult, I have to say, I think I might head up onto the promenade, is not a proper beach. It's a false beach. It was put here with massive lottery funding, and one of the stipulations was the sculpture, which Newbiggin has become famous for nowadays. But they got about 10 million quid, I think, or something round about there, and they were able to put the beach back. The trouble is, it was meant that one of the problems in Newbiggin was when you got those stiff easterly winds off the sea, it used to blow the sand in onto the main street in the village, and it blocked the drains. So then when you got a heavy rainfall, the street would flood. So they'd apparently ordered sand that was heavy and wouldn't blow, and they did some sort of a deal with the council in Skegness, dredged, because I think they wanted the river mouth dredged or something, and they dredged the river mouth and brought the sand here and put it on this beach. Unfortunately, they got it wrong, because it's shell sand, extremely light, and blows even more than the sand that was here originally. I'm just stopping again. You might be able to see there how much the sea is below the level of the sand. That never used to be the case. The sand and sea were almost at the same level, and I remember being 5 or 6 year old, you could paddle out a good 200 meters and be no deeper than your ankles as a 6 year old. So nowadays, one step and you go from ankle to chest height in the water. It's such a steep angle. But never mind, at least there's a beach. Very, very difficult to walk on though. It's all right for the kids to play, but that's about it. So these steps that bring you down onto the beach from the street above were used to be called the horseshoe steps, simply because of the semicircular shape they are. You can see it more clearly from above. There used to be a shelter there, a huge concrete structure with columns where you could buy ice creams and deck chairs and wind, you know, those wind barriers you put on the beach to stop the wind. Sadly gone now, all part of the Victorian era here, but quite a focal point on the promenade back in the Victorian era. And I'm just bringing you down here to see this. I'm just going to turn the camera around. The Hunkleton, or Hunkleston as we used to call it as kids, and it doesn't look like much there. It's because it's pretty much covered in sand, but it's basically a boulder brought down from the Cheviot Hills during the last ice age, and when the ice melted it got dumped here. When the new beach was put down, they actually lifted it up with a crane, put the new sand down, and then supposedly put it back in the same place using GPS navigation. I dispute that it is in the same place, because I remember it being not far from the shelter steps, and if I just come round this other side, you can probably see there the stones are quite some distance from the steps, because one of the games we used to play when we were kids was, as the tide was coming in, as each time the wave went back, we would run between the rock and the stairs, and it certainly wasn't that distance. We would have all drowned if it was, so I don't think it was exactly put back where it was originally. But at least here you get a closer view of the sculpture of the couple, as it's called, by an artist, Sean Henry. And one of the conditions of the lottery money was that they had a sculpture put in, and that was what they came up with. So it's meant to be two people looking out at sea, and the idea is that when you're standing here, the couple appear the same size as you are. It's meant to be an optical illusion. Baffles most people. Most people don't get what it is, and some people love it, other people think it's a nonsense. But there you go. That's it's put Newbiggin on the map, that's for sure. Just like the Angel of the North. Everybody objected to that when it was first put up. They thought it should be a pit wheel or something to do with mining or shipbuilding, but now of course it's a very famous landmark and accepted by all, but that's had a similar effect for Newbiggin. So the promenade's quite busy, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to head along the sand here, because people stare at you when you're talking to a stick or a camera on a stick, and it puts me off what I'm saying. But yes, the houses there behind me are the Victorian end of the village. When the railways and the coal mines came in the 1800s, so did those houses. And I used to have one of them. My house was one row behind that seafront row. The original part of the village is the fishing village, which we're heading down towards now. And I must admit, it's quite a beautiful day. So this is what the original beach looked like, and this is some of the original sand, and you can see it's covered in coal dust, of course. The coal still gets washed from underneath the sea and gets washed up on the shore. Occasionally people collect it for their fires. It burns very hot, so it looks untidy, but it's clean to walk on. It's just a legacy of the coal mining era here. I featured this in my Northumberland series, and I've mentioned it a few times in other films. The Art Deco building, which is Bertorelli's. And if you want to know the history on that, go to I think it's episode 4 of the Northumberland series, which is about the full history of Newbiggin. But a very iconic building, and getting an ice cream from Bertorelli's is one of those things you've got to do if you're coming to Newbiggin. Belonging to Bertorelli's is this building, which they used as a garage for their ice cream van. But it is actually the cable house. It was built in 1868, and the very first telegraph cable laid between here and Norway was connected to this place. So Newbiggin had the first telegraph communications building anywhere in Britain. But as I say, it belongs to Bertorelli's, and for years it was just their garage. The Heritage Trail people have put the blue plaque up commemorating the building. The seawall protection was very necessary, because if I just spin the camera around, these houses here literally used to get bombarded with the waves as they came over. Before they put the beach back, there were several storms where these houses were very badly damaged by the sea breaching the promenade. We're coming into the oldest part of the village now. So some of these buildings that you can see there just behind me are beginnings of, well, they've been renovated, but they were some of the first fishing cottages to be built here. Just in front of the fishing cottages is a miniature of the sculpture out in the bay, and it was the model that the artist made prior to doing the full-size sculpture. It was requested by the residents here, so at least they could see what the faces looked like, because unless you've been out on a boat, you just see the back of them, of course, from the beach. So that's why this was here. People often ask why there's a miniature of the main sculpture in the bay, but that's the reason.
At the end of the day, it's only £3 grand.
It's quite busy today. There's quite a few people down. Again, like I was saying before, you never used to get anybody down here. You could often have this whole beach to yourself. But nowadays, it's always busy. Lifeboat House I mentioned in the Northumberland series, and it's quite famous. It was one of the first lifeboat stations to be established on the Northumberland coast, and one of 3 funded by the Duke of Northumberland. But it is the oldest building still used as a lifeboat station on the well, I think I'm right in saying anywhere in Britain. but if I've got that wrong, it certainly is in Northumberland. But again, the full history is in my episode 4 of the Northumberland series. Up ahead is the pretty new, built about 10 years ago now, the Heritage Centre, and that houses a genealogy record of all the families that have lived in Newbiggin. It's also a cafe, and the most famous lifeboat that Newbiggin had is housed in there as well. Again, most people visit that as a free car park at this end of the bay as well, so it's where most people land when they're visiting Newbiggin. Yeah, as I was saying, if you want more on the history of that particular lifeboat and how was one of the lifeboat engineers actually found it in a boatyard on the south coast of England, rescued it and brought it back here to be restored. And it was quite an event. The whole village came out. It was like a royal visit. Anyway, as I say, all the details are on the episode 4 of the Northumberland series. So here we have St Bartholomew's Church. Again, quite a famous church, simply because of its position on the headland. It's pretty much recognisable from a good way north along the coast. You can see it standing on the headland, and all the way down to Tynemouth. On a clear day you can quite clearly see the church standing there on the headland at Newbiggin. And just in front of it we have the Millennium Capsule, and buried, I think that was 2000, buried in there are the full history of the village and messages for people in the future. When it gets reopened, I'm not sure, but that's what that is. This is called the Little Bay. It's there's no sand on it, it's just rocks, but ideal if you want to investigate the rock pools. There's a theory here that the headland went out for a good mile or 2 miles. It certainly was further out than it is today, but whether it went out that 2 miles is debatable. Obviously erosion has taken place and moved the cliffs further back, but as I say, whether it was 2 miles out there, I'm not sure. There was reports that I read somewhere in my research when I was doing Newbiggin that there was an entire village around the church. I'm not sure about that. One thing that was for sure though, the fishing people where that heritage centre is built, the fishing people and I'm going back to the origins of the village hundreds of years ago. The building materials were in short supply. Although there are sandstone cliffs here, they didn't have the tools or the time to quarry the stone and make stone houses. And so what a lot of the fishermen did on the northeast coast was simply use an upturned boat, and there was the deeper hulled boats, more like the trawler type, but they used to use that as a home, and I do have a picture. If I can find it, I'll post it onto this film, of all of the fishing cottages, because that area where the heritage centre is was dunes, just sand dunes down to the beach. So their actual fishing coble that they used for fishing was dragged up onto the beach, but just a little bit higher up on the sandbanks was these upturned boats which they used to live in. You know, so it's, but as I say, that happened all the way up the coast. It's still relevant at Holy Island. You can see them there, and it looks as though we're not going to be able to go any further on here. I'll just spin the camera around. It looks like erosion has taken another part of the path away, and we aren't going to be able to go any further along this one. So as you can see here, there's about a metre and a half of boulder clay on top of the rocks here, and of course the boulder clay was left after the last ice age melted, and it's obviously very soft. So whenever the sea runs over the top of these rocks, the clay just stands no chance and gets washed away very easily. So it's not so much the rocks that are disappearing, it's the boulder clay on top. But of course it's the boulder clay that everything else is built on, so that's the issue. And of course there's been an extremely bad week of weather where northeast winds were pounding this coast and the sea was boiling. It was so rough, and coupled with the wind, of course, it looks as though it's done its damage. So that's my walkabout Newbiggin. I'm going to head back to the car now. I hope you've enjoyed it. Like I said, leave your suggestions as to what we can call the series, and anywhere that you would like me to visit, within reason, of course. And these are some nice little things we can do, and keep you all viewing and watching and everything else. So if you've enjoyed it, do the usual, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already done so, share it with your friends, and keep supporting the channel in whatever way that you can. And then I can keep on making films for you to enjoy. Okay, bye for now.